All right, everybody, welcome back for another Deep Dives.
Yeah.
Today, we're looking at something really interesting. It's this idea of needs versus wants. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this,
Right.
but, sometimes you got to go a little deeper, right? You got to kind of dig in and see what's really going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're joined by an expert to help us do exactly that.
I'm excited to be here.
And we're going to be looking at this podcast episode from the Mindfuel podcast. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit scared.
Oh.
Because the little teaser that they had for this episode, it talks about they're going to be talking about how advertisers are using psychology
Right.
to trick us into wanting things.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
I'm scared to learn about these things because
Right.
I don't want to know that I'm being manipulated.
Right.
But also I kind of do, so we can avoid it. So
Exactly. Knowledge is power.
that's right. That's right.
And that's what we're here to do today, is give you the power over your own finances.
Absolutely. So the core question that they pose in this podcast episode that we're looking at is, why is understanding the distinction between needs and wants so important
Right.
for managing your money wisely?
Huh.
So I guess to start off, maybe we should just sort of define these terms. What are needs? What are wants?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
when we talk about needs, we're talking about those things that are essential for survival.
Right.
Things like food, water, shelter, healthcare. These are things that you absolutely need to live.
Right.
And then on the other hand, we have wants. And these are things that are desirable.
Sure.
They're not essential for survival, but they can definitely make life more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Things like entertainment, travel, luxury items, the latest gadgets. These are all wants.
Because so it sounds pretty straightforward,
Right.
but I think what gets really tricky is where that line is
Absolutely.
between those two things.
The line can definitely get blurry.
Yeah.
For example, a smartphone.
Right.
Is it a need or a want in today's world?
Right, because, you need to be able to communicate with people. What if there's an emergency?
Right.
And you need to call 911?
Exactly.
Or you need to get in touch with your family or your work?
Right. And so many jobs require you to have access to email and
Right.
the internet, and all those things are accessible on your phone.
But then also you can, play games and watch TikToks.
Exactly. Yeah, you can use it for entertainment. You can use it for social media.
Right.
So it really depends on your individual circumstances.
Right. So how do we figure that out then? Like,
Yes.
how do we know
Yeah.
if something is a need or want?
I think the first step is really to understand why this distinction matters in the first place.
Okay.
And the Mindfield podcast touches on this too.
Yeah.
It's really about your overall financial health when you prioritize your needs over your wants. It allows you to budget better.
Right.
It allows you to save more money.
Right.
And it also helps you to manage debt more effectively.
Okay, so let's say I have this goal, right? I want to buy a house, or I want to pay off all my student loan debt, or whatever it is. How does understanding the difference between needs and wants help me achieve those goals?
So when you have a clear understanding of what you truly need versus what you simply want, it becomes much easier to allocate your resources.
Okay.
You're not wasting money on things that don't really matter to you.
Okay.
And that means you can put more money towards your goals.
So what are some practical things that people can do? How can people actually use this information to make better financial decisions?
Yeah, so the Mindfield podcast also talks about some actionable steps that you can take. And one of the most important things is to track your spending.
Okay, so write down everything you're spending.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times we're spending money without even realizing it.
Right, yeah.
Those little impulse purchases, those daily coffees, those can really add up over time.
And it's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly.
You don't realize how much is going until you're flat broke.
And so when you track your spending, you become more aware of where your money is going.
Right.
And you can start to identify those areas where maybe you're spending more on wants than you need to.
Okay, and I assume that making a budget would also be very helpful in this.
Absolutely. Yeah, a budget is essential for managing your money effectively. It allows you to allocate your funds to your needs first.
Okay.
And then if you have any money left over, you can allocate it to your wants.
Okay. But I feel like a lot of people don't like budgets.
I know budgets get a bad rap.
Yeah.
People think they're restrictive.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to reframe the way we think about budgets. It's not about depriving yourself.
Right.
It's about making conscious choices about how you want to spend your money.
So is there anything else people can do, besides tracking their spending and making a budget?
Yeah, well, setting financial goals is also really important.
Okay.
When you have clear goals in mind, it gives you something to work towards. It gives you a reason to prioritize your needs over your wants. So, for example, if you're saving for a down payment on a house,
Right.
you're going to be more motivated to cut back on your spending on wants like eating out or entertainment because you know that that money is going towards something that's really important to you.
Okay. And you mentioned this earlier, but I think it's worth repeating, this idea of delaying gratification.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so this is a really powerful technique for resisting impulse purchases. So let's say you see something that you really want, like a new pair of shoes,
A new guitar.
a new guitar, exactly, but it's not something that you necessarily need.
Right.
So instead of buying it right away, give yourself some time to think about it.
Yeah.
Put it on a list, maybe wait 24 hours or even a week,
Oh, wow.
and then see if you still really want it after that time has passed. Often that initial urge will fade.
Right.
And you'll realize that you didn't really need it after all.
Yeah. No, I do that sometimes. I'll put something in my Amazon cart and then I'll just leave it there for like a week and then I'll come back and I'm like, I don't really need this.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing how that works.
And the Mindful podcast also mentioned this idea of like connecting spending with your values.
Yes.
And I think that's really interesting. Like, how do you actually do that?
Well, so this is where the definition of needs can kind of evolve beyond just those basic necessities.
Okay.
So, for example, we talked about a smartphone earlier.
Right.
And for some people, a smartphone might be absolutely essential for their work or for their business.
Okay.
So in that case, it becomes a need
Right.
because it's directly supporting their livelihood.
Right. Or like if you live in a rural area and there's no public transportation,
Exactly.
you kind of need a car
Right.
to get around.
Yeah. So it's really about understanding what's important to you, what your values are,
Correct.
and then making sure that your spending aligns with those values.
So it's not about like depriving yourself of everything.
Yeah.
It's just about being mindful about what you're spending your money on
Yeah.
and making sure that it aligns with what you actually care about.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about making choices that empower you
Right.
rather than just reacting to fleeting desires.
I love that. So I'm curious, have you seen this play out in real life?
Oh, absolutely.
Like with people you've worked with or?
Yeah, I've worked with many people who have transformed their finances
Good.
by embracing this approach. And I had one client, let's call him David,
Uh-uh.
who was really struggling to save for a down payment on a house.
Right.
And so we worked together to identify his core values.
Okay.
And it turned out that experiences with loved ones were more important to him
Okay.
than material possessions.
Okay.
But he was spending a significant chunk of his income on a fancy car,
Oh.
which, while nice, didn't really align with his values.
Okay.
So he decided to downsize to a more practical vehicle
Okay.
and reallocate the savings towards his house fund.
Wow. So it wasn't about like sacrificing everything.
Yeah.
It's just about like making sure that his spending
Right.
was in line with what he cared about.
Exactly. Yeah. He was choosing to invest in what mattered most to him.
That's great. So to wrap up, I guess it's not just about knowing the difference between needs and wants.
Right.
It's about understanding like the psychology behind our choices
Absolutely.
and making sure that those choices reflect our priorities.
Right. And in a world of ever-present temptations,
Yeah,
that's a skill worth mastering.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So on that note, here's a question for you to think about. What needs in your life might actually be wants in disguise? And what steps can you take to realign your spending with what truly matters to you? Until next time, keep on thinking, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
See you then.
Bye, man.